Good morning. Please mute your microphones. If you haven't done so already, please mute your microphones, if you would, please. All right, we've got many of you still dropping into the system here, so please stand by. Welcome, everyone. We have a lot of folks on the call this morning, so stand by just for a moment as we let everybody in. Thank you for being here. All right. Stacey, if you could watch the waiting room while I do these announcements, I'd appreciate it. Good morning, everyone. My name is Tom Ashley, and I'm CEO of NAFA Florida here in Tallahassee. It's our pleasure to welcome you this morning. Just a couple of perfunctory announcements before we get started. First of all, please make sure that your microphones are muted. And of course, the reason for that is to block out all the ambient noise. The presenters, it's a distraction for them, frankly, if your mics are open and there's dogs barking and kids crying and so on and so forth. So please mute your microphones throughout the duration of this morning's presentation. Just to note that this presentation is being recorded here on the Zoom platform. We will make the recording available, of the video available to you afterwards. If you'd like to obtain a copy of it, simply go to the chat feature and send us a message that you'd like to have a recording, and please put your email address in there as well. So please do that now if you'd like, if you think you'd like to have it. We'll try to remind you about that again towards the conclusion of today's presentation. Once the presentation is concluded, we'll keep the Zoom platform open for a few minutes afterwards just to see if there's anyone else who'd like to let us know that you'd like to have a copy of the recording. It comes through YouTube. It'll be a YouTube link. We have to convert the recording. It takes a day or so, sometimes a day and a half, depending on how YouTube is acting up or not. But it's a pretty hefty file, and so that recording takes a while to transfer. 100 people. So please mute yourselves if you would, please, and we'll move forward. Any questions that you have for today's presenters, please enter them into the chat feature. The chat feature, that little button below with the box that has the little bubble above it. Please enter your questions there. The citizen staff will handle those questions. There are certain times and places throughout the presentation where the questions will be moved over to transmitted to the presenter. So please make sure you enter your questions there. So at any rate, let me do this. Let me introduce Jeff Chernoff. He's the president of NAFA Florida from Tampa, and he's going to say a more formal word of welcome, and then we'll move it over to the folks at Citizens for the presentation. Jeff Chernoff, president of NAFA Florida, please take it. Jeff, are you there? Jeff?
Good morning. My apologies. My internet is a bit unstable at the moment. Good morning. My name is Jeff Chernoff, as Tom said. Here at NAFA Florida, for those of you that are members, we very much appreciate your membership. For those of you that are not members, if you are interested in joining as to what NAFA Florida has to offer, we are an advocacy organization, we're an education organization, and so those are some of the various reasons why we're here as an agents only association. Thank you all very much for joining us today, and it is my pleasure to introduce Carl Rockman, who's Vice President of Agency and Marketing Services.
Great. Thanks, Jeff, and thanks, Tom, and thanks, everybody, for taking time out of your morning to spend a little time with citizens. I'm Carl Rockman, VP of Agency and Market Services. Joining me in today's presentation are three of our great agency field managers, Jim Punday, Eddie Ramirez, and Dalgis Castaneda. Three of these folks will be featured throughout today's presentation. They've got different messaging for you. Some of you are acquainted with these three agency field managers. And if you're not, we're going to get you acquainted with them and some of the other folks on the team. Also, on the next slide, I want to recognize the two members that represent NAFA on our Market Accountability Advisory Committee. That's Lee Gordesky. I know Lee's out there today. And then Eric Ponce also represents NAFA on our Agent Roundtable. Our Market Accountability Advisory Committee meets 4 times a year. It's a very formal presentation. It's publicly presented. I encourage anyone that wants to listen in. It's publicly posted on our website. Lee does a great job of bringing the voice of the agent into the Accountability Committee. Accountability Committee is presented with things that are happening at Citizens. The Accountability Committee consists of agents, carriers, the Office of Insurance Regulation, bankers, and realtors. So the entire market is represented on that Accountability Committee, and Citizen staff reports right to that committee and presents different things that are going on that impact those different constituents. Lee does a great job again of representing your association on that committee. And then Eric again represents the voice of the agent on our Agent Roundtable, which meets regularly. Agent Roundtable meets directly with Citizen senior staff to make us aware of things that are impacting agents, but more importantly, to give us feedback on things we're thinking of doing, making sure that we've got everybody considered in any of those initiatives, and that we're always thinking of our great agent partners whenever we do anything that might impact you or the policyholders we mutually serve. I mentioned our agency field management group. Both Eddie, Jim, and Dolges are here today, but we also have Brian, Nydia, and George, and Kelly Abel as part of the team. These folks are available to you. This is an agency field manager team. Citizens doesn't have marketing reps per se because we're not trying to grow, but we do have to support you in your agency with all the things that Citizens throws at you. So whether it's depopulation, whether it is new business requirements, whether it's inspections, whether it's secondary, primary, whatever the flavor of the day is, these folks are available to consult with you, to provide support and advocacy for issues that you might have with any part of Citizens. Think of them as, again, your advocate for things that you might need. But one more important thing, if they contact you, if they email you or call you, please open that email or take your call. If they're reaching out to you, it's probably because we're seeing something internally that we want to bring to your attention. Okay, we want to bring it to your attention very quickly, whether it's an opportunity with underwriting quality, an opportunity with depopulation, some opportunity with service levels. We have your best interest in mind. Please take our call because we want to do all that we can to partner with you on a great experience for the customers we mutually serve. Okay. All right. On the next slide, though, I want to set the stage. One of the benefits of coming to a power hour is to get a little vision for what is about to happen, both in the current quarter and the future quarter. So I'm going to call these out. We're going to cover a lot of these in detail, okay, with Jim and Dolges and Eddie. But if you take anything away as an agency leader or as a producer in an agency, what the heck is Citizens going to throw at me next? Here it is, okay? The first thing in October, hopefully everyone's aware, and we'll cover it, we started to accept credit card payments. Okay, we're going to cover that. That is a long-awaited request from our Agent Roundtable, and we were pleased to finally be able to deliver that functionality. We're also going to be introducing in late November multi-factor authentication for the My Agency platform. Now, this is the My Agency platform that's available to agency principals and their designees. This is not Policy Center. This is not the portal. This is the very specialized application that agency principals and their designees use to onboard staff, to pay appointment fees, to get their agency analytics and production reports. So it's a very specialized application, but the agency principals are going to go through a multi-factor authentication piece in late November. We'll require you to carry 2 IDs for a while, but Citizens will be moving to multi-factor authentication for all of our systems next year. And we'll have more information on that. Not unusual, a lot of carriers have it. Information privacy is important to everybody. Flood policies, I think everyone should be aware. Okay, but starting the 1st of January in 2024, if a policy is over 600,000 coverage A, a flood policy is required anywhere in the state of Florida, anywhere, not just special hazard zones. Okay. Some of you may be dealing with non-renewals of 600,000 and above without a flood if we haven't gotten proof of flood by now, okay? You can easily remedy that by sending us proof of flood. We will lift the non-renewal, but I would encourage every agent out there to take a look in my policy at your book of business report that will highlight for you the coverage A of your entire Citizens book. look at those folks that have 600,000 and above coverage A and get ready, because we're either going to need to put a flood policy on that policy to renew it, but those policies are also candidates for what? Depopulation and rollover. Okay. We're not going to cover this in detail in a subsequent slide. This will be the one time I do talk about the flood requirement, but we want to remind everybody the flood requirement, 600,000 and above, is in play right now for renewals 1/1. Okay. And right now there are no plans, nothing in our hip pocket where the upside limit on 700,000 and million is going to change. That is a statutorily driven rule, and the statute would have to change in order for Citizens to offer coverage A at higher limits. Okay. For November, some of you have seen our bulletin on commercial lines rate changes, and then in December we also announced rate changes, both for primary, our regular rate plan, but a lot of you should have seen, and we'll cover the rate change on non-primary residents. Okay, if the person is not in a primary residence, then their rate will increase anywhere from 35 to 45%. Okay, this is a statutorily driven deal. It's a public policy decision, right? But it is designed to do what? If folks aren't living in primary residence, we've been allowed now to uncap our rate and charge them a more actuarially sound rate. This presents an opportunity that we'll cover with you, okay, in more detail. So that's Q4. In Q1, depopulation in January, depopulation in February, depopulation in March. Okay, and that's after a depopulation in October, November, and December. This is good news. I know it creates a lot of operational turbulence in agencies when depops are happening. And we didn't go from 400,000 policies to 1.4 million overnight. And we're not going to be able to move folks appropriately to the private market overnight. But depopulation is a signal of a healthier market. 11 carriers participating in depopulation this year at various times, and new entrants emerging. Our goal, our number one goal, is a healthy insurance market. And the market is not healthy if Citizens is holding on to customers that are more appropriately placed in the private market, where we can create a more competitive environment and help those private market companies. So get ready. If you've been involved in Depop, I would say get ready for more Depop the first quarter of the year, and we'll obviously plan and support you appropriately. Also, I'll signal in February the potential for commercial lines depopulation. Okay, we have some interest in commercial residential, and we are optimistic and anticipating some participation in that space. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn it over to Dalgis, who's going to take us through our first topic. We are taking questions in the chat today, so if you have a question on anything we're talking about, please throw it in the chat, and I'll be back and forth various points of today's Power Hour to assist with the Q&A. But for now, I'm going to turn it over to Dalgis, who's going to talk about a very exciting initiative on credit cards. Dalgis, anyway.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having us. It's a pleasure to be with you here today. So as Carl mentioned, you may have noticed or maybe read the bulletin that we sent earlier this week. We're now accepting credit cards. Yay, I can hear it in the background, the cheering. We have updated our system and we take e-payments through. So it might look a little different to you when you go in to post a payment for your policyholder. The image on the screen is what the new system looks like, and it illustrates the options for you or the policyholder to process not only a checking account payment, but also a credit or a debit card from these three credit card brands. It's important to keep in mind that when the customer pays via the credit card, there'll be a separate 2.35% service fee that will be applied. This will be a charge to the insured separately and will go directly to the vendor. Only the premium charge will come to Citizens. So next, did you know that Citizens now offers paperless delivery options for policy documents? So what does it mean at Citizens? It's less mail, less clutter, a greener environment, and increased convenience for Citizens customers. All the customer needs to do is to have or create a My Policy account, and within their account, they can enroll for paperless delivery of documents. Not only will they receive notice when a document is available, they will also be available to access their policy documents electronically. This can come in very handy when you need documents in a pinch, especially during a storm season. So some benefits to the customer signing for paperless delivery are Well, like I already mentioned, the ability to gain access to documents like when they need them quickly. They will have early notice when they have a payment due. It will reduce the potential risk for mail fraud, and it will also help the environment. Some of our renewal packages are up to 60 pages in length, and if the policyholder just recycles the package, well, maybe they would rather not have the burden of receiving them at all. I hear many times the agents themselves are putting them in the mail and taking the expense of mailing them to the customers. Some important notes about the paperless programs are that at this time, this option is only available for personal lines policy types. It's also important to note that some documents will still be mailed as we legally are required to do, such as cancellations and non-renewal notice. So we're looking for your partnership to please help us enroll as many customers into this option as possible. We have a marketing flyer available on our website for you to use in our brochure library. It's similar to the one you're seeing on the screen. If you have any questions or how to obtain it, please reach out to any of us or your field agency manager. We can definitely assist you in getting that to you. So now we want to share a reminder with you. We should never enter erroneous policyholder emails. The only email that we should be entering into our system when writing or changing a policy is an up-to-date and a fully accurate email address for the policyholder. If you don't have an email address, you should do your best to obtain it. However, if you cannot or the customer just wishes not to provide it, you can indicate that on the policy. The image that we're showing you is the screen. It's where you can indicate that the customer does not have an email address or does not wish to share it. The important note here is that do not put in a fake, a made-up email address, or sometimes we have agencies putting their own address for their agency. This is important to citizens and you that we are, as we're communicating with policyholders more and more via email. We also send important storm-related emails during storm season or where we're in a hurricane watch situation. Additionally, this is how the customer creates their My Policy account, where they can sign up for previously mentioned, the paperless delivery of documents, make payments, pull down documents, file claims, all electronically. If the email address is incorrect, the customer will have a hard time registering or accessing their account. So it's important that we make our best that we don't put any erroneous or fake email addresses here. So you may have recently heard of a new legislation was passed this year that increases the insurance premium charge on non-primary residents. We received Office of Insurance Regulation approval for the rates that will be charged based on this. So on October 3rd, we announced rate approvals for residences that are not being primarily used by the owner or their tenant. This bulletin included a lot of information on the new rating and how it would affect policyholders on a new business and renewal. So on October 12th, we offer webinars to teach and of the new rating and how to provide proof to verify that in fact that home is primary. If you missed it, the webinar recording is out on our website, so please go take a look at it after our call. Today, we would like to review with you some important aspects of the rating program and how our system will allow you to submit proof needed. So better yet is the beginning of what is considered a primary residence. It is a dwelling that is the policyholder's primary home and it's occupied for more than 9 months of the year. Or it's a lease rental that is the primary home that the tenant occupies for more than 9 months of the year. So when is this going into effect? For new business effective December 16th and later, this rate will apply to non-primary residents. For existing business, this will take effect on renewals on or after December 16th. So what does the proof look like? So for existing book of business where the risk was indicated as primary residence based on the usage and occupancy of the system, we attempted to obtain proof of primary residence using homestead exemption and voters registration records that we had available. If we were unable to confirm primary this way, we will apply a non-primary rate upon the renewal. You may still secure a primary rate for your customer as long as you provide an acceptable proof from the list that you see on your screen. So that is a homestead exception, a voter's registration card, a redacted Florida driver's license, a redacted Florida identification card, a redacted military orders, a vehicle registration, or a lease agreement executed within the last 12 months. It's important to note that you must redact the personal information on the driver's license number, identification card number, military identification number from the customer's mark or on the items marked with an asterisk on the screen prior to uploading. So now let's take a closer look on the affirmation form needed at new business. So when taking new business and in rate instances where policy changes, where the occupancy or the usage changes, it is an additional form that will be needed to be uploaded. So there are two forms that we're going to need. The policyholder affirmation regarding primary residence for all new business where the risk is primary rated as primary. This form is to be uploaded in conjunction with one item of acceptable proof from the list that is available and that we showed on the previous screen. So the policyholder regarding primary residence new purchase owner occupied is for all new business where the dwelling is a new purchase and the policyholder does not yet have any of the needed proof to show residency, but intends for this dwelling to be their primary residence. The applicant form will print with the application for you to have the policyholder read and sign a new business. So keep in mind, if the policy is already correctly rated as a primary residence and there is no changes to occupancy or usage, then all you need to do is process a policy change to provide the acceptable proof of primary residence and one of the documents from the list on the acceptable documentation. You will not need an affirmation form for these policies. So next, let's look at the system and how we have added a question to the system for you to answer when it comes to primary residence. If you have a renewal policy that was rated non-primary at renewal and now have proper proof, you will need to process a policy change to tell us and upload the proof. So basically, you start a policy change in the system effective today, go straight to the dwelling screen. Here's where you would confirm the usage of occupancy is correct and answer the question, what proof of primary residence is available? Using the drop-down menu to select the documentation you have or have been provided by the customer. Estimate premium adjustment, and on the required document screen, you will upload proof of documents, then select submit. Now, you may be wondering, well, how is this policy change going to affect on the billing? Well, let's talk through how the timing of the policy change for the renewal will affect the billing in Policy Center. So if processed before the renewal offer is made, you will still process the change in the current term with today's effective date, and this change will carry over to the renewal when the offer is generated. The correct primary rate will be applied to the renewal offer and reflected on the invoice. So if you process after the renewal offer generates, but before the renewal effective date, you will still process the change in the current term with today's effective date. And once the policy change is approved, it will be made on the renewal term. The renewal premium will be due based on the original invoice and not the new amount with the invoice when the change applied. The policy will not be updated with the new premium until the renewal effective date. So remember, the policy will not renew without payment. So in order to renew, the policyholder needs to make a minimum of 40% of the original invoice to renew the policy. So let me repeat that for a second. So in order to renew, the policyholder needs to pay a minimum of 40% of the original invoice to renew the policy. The remaining billing will be adjusted on the renewal effective date when the change registers on the billing. If the process is made after the renewal effective date, you will still process the change in the current term with today's effective date. Once processed, the policy change will create a credit on the policy. The insured would have already made a payment to renew the policy, and if the installments remaining, a credit will apply to any future invoice. If the policy was paid in full, the policyholder will be refunded any remaining credit. Remember, as I mentioned earlier, we held an entire webinar holding over the primary and non-primary rates. If you missed the primary and non-primary webinar, it has been assigned to all agents and LCRs that did not initially attend. It is not mandatory, but highly recommended. So if you missed it, please check on your Learning Center. It has been assigned to agents and LCRs that did not attend initially. So I thank you now for your time. I will now transfer the presentation over to Eddie.
Before we go to Eddie Delgis, we did have one question for you on the primary, non-primary.
Yeah.
When we were talking about a tenant occupied risk where the tenant is renting for more than 9 months, is that just for an HO4 tenant policy, or would that also apply to a DP policy for the owner of the property who is doing the long-term lease with the tenant?
Sorry, I had myself muted. It's applied to all forms affected, to all forms of policies where it's tenant occupied.
Perfect, thank you. And that was the only question for now.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Delgis, and good morning, everyone. Another initiative we would need your help on is citizens depopulation efforts. Let's talk about the assumption process from start to finish. We will start with communication from citizens on day one. Impacted policyholders will receive the policyholder choice offer. The policyholder choice offer letter includes coverage worksheets and estimated premiums for citizens and all available assumption offers. The agent of record for that policy will receive an activity in their policy desktop for each policy selected for the assumption. In addition, the agency principal will receive a spreadsheet with all the policies selected for the agency listed. As soon as the policyholder choice offer is sent, the clock for a decision needed starts. If the policyholder estimated offers are outside of 20% of citizens' estimated renewals, they will have 30 days to register a choice. They may select the carrier or one of the carriers if multiple offers, or they may choose to opt out to remain with Citizens. The policyholder preference should be submitted by the agent in Policy Center or by the policyholder on our website using the code in the offer on or before the deadline. We will show you these two options in the next slide. All policyholder choice submissions registered before the deadlines would be processed. Policyholders who request to remain with Citizens will receive a Remain with Citizens confirmation notice. If no choice is registered by the date indicated on the policyholder choice offer letter and form, Citizens will assign the policy to one of the takeout companies that selected it. If more than one takeout company selected the policy, it will be assigned to the takeout company that presented the lowest estimated premium. During this time, the policyholder is not given an option to remain with Citizens if an estimated offer within 20% of the estimated Citizens renewal is received from a participating carrier. On the assumption date, which is about 45 days from the day the policyholder offer was mailed, Citizens mails the notice of assumption and the non-renewal and certificate of assumption to policyholders whose policies were assumed. The unsuccessful assumption notice is also sent to policyholders whose policies were reweighed or otherwise not assumed. From the date of assumption through the non-renewal date, Citizens will continue to service a policy. During this time, if a claim If there's a claim, it will be paid by the assuming carrier at the limits on the Citizens policy. Upon the end of the term, the policy will non-renew with Citizens, and the policyholder will be provided a renewal offer from the assuming carrier. Prior to the non-renewal with Citizens, about 60 days in advance of the end of the term, the policyholder will be sent a renewal offer from the assuming carrier. If the renewal offer from the assuming carrier is different from the estimated renewal premium and the policyholder's choice offer, and now the offer is more than 20% of the estimated Citizens renewal premium, you may attempt to qualify the customer or come back to Citizens. The assuming carrier offer will need to be compared to a Citizens new business quote for eligibility. All other new business guidelines and requirements will apply. Next, let's see how your policyholder can register their choice, as well as your option for recording their choice on their behalf. Here are the two options. As we could see on the left-hand side in our main website, you will see where the policyholder may enter their selection on their own using their policy information as well as the registration code we sent them in their letter. For the agent on the right-hand side, you will see where the agent could enter the choice and policy center for the policyholder. This is a good option, especially when you're making your phone calls, when using your list. Let's say the customer cannot do it themselves. Let's say they misplaced their notice, or you're just calling them again from your list. You could go into Policy Center, and under Policy Center, you could record their choice. Remember, you could also pull the policyholder choice offer package from document section in Policy Center. Let's talk about the importance of making sure policyholders are reviewing the offers and making a choice if they are able to. The changes to the personal lines depopulation program will be to introduce eligibility requirements to determine if the policy will be allowed to remain with Citizens with a takeout company. Estimated premium offer falls within 20% of the estimated Citizens renewal premium. The policyholder will not have the option to elect to remain with Citizens, and the policyholder will be assigned to one of the takeout companies that made them an offer and rendered them ineligible to renew with Citizens. For example, the first assumption that was affected by the new law was Monarch National assumptions that took place back in June 20th. To give you an idea of how impactful this new legislation will be to depopulation, Monarch selected 18,760 policies for assumption, and of those policies, 97% of them were not eligible to remain with Citizens due to Monarch offer being within 20% of the estimated premium. Since June, we have had several depopulation webinars, and we have posted these webinars and under our training tab, under the recorded webinars, just in case you missed them. Even if you did not have any policies as part of the past assumptions, the recordings do explain the new population program and all the new things to be aware of, some of which we will review in the next couple of slides. But I also wanted to bring to your attention that as we speak right now, we're currently having a live webinar. We will have one later on today at 2 p.m. And there's two more scheduled for tomorrow, one at 10 and the other at 2 p.m. We did send out communication last week with links to register for these webinars, or you could also go into our Citizens Learning Center and register there for them. We also updated the letters to the policyholders when selected for assumption accordingly. We updated the data file we sent to the agency principal to indicate which policies are not eligible to stay with Citizens due to the offer from the takeout carrier being within 20% of the estimated Citizens premium. We also modified the agent desktop activity to better align with this new guideline. Next slide, please. Here we have an example of a policyholder choice offer. As you see here, this policyholder was made an offer by one participating carrier based off the estimated premium. They were not made ineligible to stay with Citizens based off the 20% rule. This means that the policyholder has a choice to remain with Citizens or opt out of the assumption, or they may choose to select a private market offer and be assumed on the assumption date. If they make no selection either way, they will be assumed by the carrier that made the offer. You would notice that the estimated renewal premium for the carrier is $3,036 higher than the estimated Citizens renewal. This is something the policyholder will want to pay close attention to. If you do not make a selection, they may not like the outcome. This could result in them coming back to you and looking for a lower premium. Next slide, please. Let's take a look at the participating carriers for November and December assumption. As you see on this slide, we have several personal lines carriers participating for each assumption. You will also notice that the number of the Office of Insurance Regulation approved are 168,000 for the December assumption. Please pay close attention to your desktop activities and review the list that were emailed to your agency to work with your affected customers to ensure they understand their choices. One last thing we want to look at in the depopulation space is a resource that's available. Next slide, please. As we're in the middle of December assumption, we would like to go over where to find some great depopulation resource. Go into our main website, the citizensfla.com. You would log on the top right-hand corner. Click under Programs. On your left-hand side, you would see Depopulation. There you would click under Depopulation Resources. Here you would find access to the depopulation plans, the personal and commercial lines depopulation calendars, copies of the letters we sent to the customers, as well as all the carrier coverage worksheets. Next slide, please. While we have transition away from the clearinghouse system, we still need to make sure that the risks coming to Citizens are eligible based on our eligibility guidelines and rules. There are going to be two main paths for certifying eligibility for your customers. It will depend on what your customer has for prior insurance. If they have a cancellation, non-renewal notice, a lapse notice, or no prior coverage, or the risk is a new purchase, you will need to run the risk against all your private markets or through your comparative rater if you have one. You will then need to qualify them based off on the results of your private market shopping. If you did not receive any offers at all, then you may qualify the risk based on the fact that you are unaware of any offer of coverage from an authorized insurer. If you receive one offer back, you will need to qualify the customer based on the 20% rule, meaning that offers need to be at least 20% higher than the Citizens quote for comparable coverage. If the quote is 20% more than Citizens, then you may come to Citizens. If it is not, then the customer is not eligible for coverage with Citizens. Let's look at what you would need to do if the customer has a renewal in hand that feels that the premium is too high and wants to see if there's another less expensive option. This second path to check eligibility would need to be taken when the customer has a renewal offer in hand from another carrier. first step you would need to take is to run a comparable Citizens Quick Quote to see if the renewal offers 20% more than Citizens Quick Quote for the same coverage. If it is not, then the risk is not eligible for Citizens via the 20% rule. If it is, then you may proceed to step 2. If the renewal offer is 20% more than Citizens Quick Quote, then you would need to proceed to check your other markets via the carrier portal, or if you have one, your comparative rater. If offers are received, then you would need to compare them to a Citizens Quick Quote to make sure that they are 20% more. If all offers are, your risk is eligible for Citizens via the 20% rule, and you may proceed. Remember to save, print your Citizens Quick Quote before converting to a full application, as you will need this later. If there is even one offer received back that is not 20% higher than Citizens Quick Quote, your risk is not eligible for Citizens. If there are no offers received at all, when you go to the carrier portal or your comparative rater, then your risk is eligible for coverage with Citizens based off the 20% rule when you compare the renewal to the Citizens Quick Quote. Now let's look at what required documents you would need. As we previously reviewed, depending on what your customer has in hand will guide you in determining eligibility. It would also guide you towards which required documents you would need to upload for proof of prior coverage and proof of eligibility. If your customer has a cancellation, a non-renewal, or has a lapse, you would need 2 documents: a screen print of your comparative rater, or at least one carrier portal page showing that either all offers of coverage were 20% higher than Citizens premium, or that there were no offers received. The second document that you would need is proof of prior, which can be in the form of a cancellation, non-renewal, or new purchase. If your customer has a renewal offer, you would need 3 documents: the renewal offer as proof of prior coverage, and the Citizens Quick Quote you use to compare the renewal offer to proving the 20% rule was met. And finally, you would need a screen print of your comparative rater, or at least one carrier portal page showing that either all offer of coverage were 20% higher than Citizens premium, or that there were no offers received. Next slide. Now that was a quick summary of our new Clearinghouse Interim Solution program. We went over all this and more on a webinar we had, and this webinar can be found in our website. We do strongly encourage you to watch it, and if you missed it or would like to watch it again. Renewal remarketing. In addition to the new business process, there's a new process for renewal activity. The process changes are for renewals effective October 22nd and after. As a reminder, agents are required to attempt to move their Citizens policy into the private market before each policy renewal. To assist agents, we will now send an activity to those policies for which there is a high likelihood of coverage being available in the private market. Example of this would be homes less than 10 years old, roofs that are less than 10 years old, and no claims. However, please remember, not receiving an activity does not eliminate the agent's responsibility to remarket all Citizens policies prior to renewal. Let's talk about the activity we're going to send to you. The activity title will be Renewal Remarketing, and it will be issued to the agent of record 51 days prior to the policy expiration date, advising you to look for private market coverage. At this time, to remarket the risk, you should use your comparative rater or a quote from an appointed carrier to determine if the customer has an opportunity to be placed in the private carrier. If a private market offer is received, you should offer it to the customer who may choose to move their coverage. If the customer chooses to take the offer, you should submit a cancellation request for your customer in Policy Center using the cancellation, the insured's request, renewal remarketing reason, and upload supporting documents. If an offer is not received or the customer does not want to accept it, that is okay. You may complete the activity and the policy will renew. Some important notes: there are no requirements, nor is there a way to respond back to these activities. We trust if you completed the activity, you have remarketed it. We issued a bulletin on September 5th. This bulletin will have more information on it if you would like to access it in our website. Again, you would go to our citizensfla.com, log in on the top right corner. You would click on the news section, and then on your left-hand side, you would click on bulletin. Lastly, we do have a recorded webinar available for the Clearinghouse Interim Program. And this is also found under our training tab under the recorded webinars titled Navigating Interim Changes to a Clearinghouse Program. And with this, we are open for any questions you may have.
Great job, Eddie. Thank you, guys. This is Carl Rockman. We have a little bit more to share with you, but I'm going to take these questions that are in the chat. I'm going to take them one at a time, and I'm going to be incredibly quick and brief, but I do want to honor them because they're written to everybody, okay? And then when I'm concluded, I'm going to ask my Citizens team to pick up the pace at the back end because we do want to end on time. First question's coming in from Barry. Robocalls going to insureds that didn't have a choice to make. We regret that error. We did have some robocalls go out to consumers that did not have a choice to make, that had an offer within 20%. We don't intend on repeating that. We do intend, though, on repeating with 5 days to go. If a consumer has been made an offer above 20% and has a choice to stay, and they haven't made a selection, we do intend to do a contact campaign to make sure those customers are aware that they have a choice. Because remember, if they don't make a choice, then Citizens will make the choice for them, putting them with the carrier that has the lowest premium, but not Citizens. If there's a claim before the policy's renewed, who do they call? They call the company that's assumed them. That company will handle the claim, but remember, the claim is handled on Citizens policy terms. But the carrier's claim people and claim department will handle the claim. And if you happen to call us, we're just going to warm transfer you to them. So the assuming carrier handles the claim. I want to be notified if Stephanie asks, I want to know if we'll be notified if they send a letter to the insured after the takeout's selected and we back out or there's a reweighting event. There's a number of questions on this, and we do have an enhancement coming called a closeout report. Right now, I think we give you very good visibility on a master list of policies that are being marketed for assumption. We give that to the agency principal. We also fill up your activity queues with individual policy activities if they have been chosen to be part of the marketing campaign for an assumption. Where we want to pick up our game is at the closeout, okay? At the end of the assumption, who stayed and who remains and who left. The other piece I'll point out is we had a tremendous amount of unsuccessful assumptions in the October. That was primarily due to a particular carrier oversubscribing above their approved amount. We don't anticipate the volume of unsuccessful assumptions going forward due to CURBS limitations that have been placed in by the Office of Insurance Regulation. And I think we handled Chris's report. And I think, let me see here. Cynthia asked, when a client goes to the different carrier due to depopulation, does your office still services them on Policy Center? So before the assumption date, you can go into Policy Center and make a change. If they're doing a refinance, whatever you need to do, that customer remains in Policy Center until such time as the assuming carrier issues that new declaration page, which will be about 55 to 60 days before the actual termination date. And Mike is asking what happens if our clients tell us their depopulation selection after the selection date. Michael, what I would say is if their choice came in late, assuming they had one, okay, if they had a choice but didn't make it on time, there's nothing we can do to unwind the assumption. Those customers may be eligible to come back as new business with Citizens if they qualify under the 20% rule based on the carrier's offered premium and Citizens' current premium at new business at that time. And I think those are the general questions that are in the chat. I'll do my best to respond to folks with more individual concerns. But I'd like to go ahead and turn it back over, I believe, to Jim, who's got the back end of the content for today's Power Hour. Jim.
I'll speed it up as quickly as I can, Carl. We're going to pick up here on page or slide 35 here. This is going to be the slide that's know before you call. Just wanted to touch base on a couple of key points on here. The personnel tile, we'll take it from there. Well, this will give you access to personal lines underwriting manuals, personal lines forms, required documents, product guides. Additionally, this tile is also where you're going to find out where the underwriting processing times are. So that's a good spot to always look to kind of get an idea as to where underwriting is at as far as processing times, kind of set the proper expectations, with what we're dealing with currently with the current submission rate. The commercial tile that you'll find on there, the underwriting manuals, commercial line forms, required documents, again, rate changes as well by territory and maps. The training tile is a great access for job aids, guides, live education offerings. You'll see on-demand education on there as well as webinar recordings that as well that we will post, some of those trainings that we do offer. Programs tab as well will be a resource for you surrounding the current programs like Clearinghouse, Depop, inspections, managed repair program, and sinkhole. The news tab, you'll find all the agent bulletins that are out there, as well as per the personal and commercial lines, as well as any types of binding alerts or agent updates that are available. So that's a great resource for you there. On the My Agency tab, you'll also be able to access agent and agency agreements, as well as popular agency forms such as your W-9 forms, your EFT forms for commissions, and the agent of record transfer forms. So in addition, you'll also be able to find your commission schedule and eligible company matrix on there as well. Next slide. Okay, so continuing on the path of knowing before you call, we want to touch base just on a couple of main reasons why you want or need to contact us. Underwriting escalation calls, while you may be told 24 to 48 hours at the time of the call, based on routing and underwriting supervisor callback can take up to 5 business days. So please allow time for the callback before escalating anything else from that point on, because underwriting is going to want to see that those calls are actually logged into the system and that you did indeed do the proper process. Processing time frames, we process all submissions, new business policy changes, reinstatement requests, accounting requests in the order that they are received. So please allow time for processing. We can escalate urgent matters that do come up outside of the average processing time if one of the following conditions are met. There's a pending cancellation effective within 2 calendar days, a pending non-renewal effective with 2 calendar days, an unbound submission with a financial closing within 2 calendar days, a document that has already been processed by underwriting but was processed incorrectly. There is no rush on any kind of high value or sinkhole risk. We'll show you how to confirm where we are on average in processing certain types of requests in the next couple of slides. So when would you contact your agency field manager? Unresolved urgent inquiries can be, but are not limited to, any urgent request to underwriting or the CCC that's gone awry through the above mentioned requirements that I just spoke of. If you're looking for a training resource or unable to locate something inside the system that we just went over, if you receive any information from anywhere within Citizens that you find contradictory or that is a discrepancy within it, those are the kind of calls we would also want to as well. If you're unable to resolve a claim inquiry or you need additional support as well, any types of claims related issues, we could always escalate those as well. If you have any intelligence within the insurance industry, your market conditions or what's happening in the market, we always value that type of feedback. So please send those over to us. We always looking to see what's happening in the market, and we like to be able to provide that intel to upper management. Marketing of Citizens products by competing agents as well. That's kind of stuff that we want to know. Any unresolved Ivans matters. Discuss policy specific details. It's preferred that we speak with a credentialed staff member. So please make sure that all your staff within your agencies is properly credentialed within the system. Agency principals or agency principal designees only. We need to make sure for privacy and security that we are speaking to someone from the agency who is eligible to receive specific agency or policy information. Next slide. We previously shared with you that we have created a commercial lines resource guide that's on the site. Since this guide has been helpful to many of our agents, we just want to also make you aware there's a personal lines resource guide as well. This guide will be useful documents that you may need to submit to new business or qualify a risk. It also includes commonly used forms like the job aids guides, webinar recordings, modules, and much more. Next slide. Now that we've shared some of this information on these resources and knowing when it's appropriate to escalate, did you know that you can now track the processing times for some of the biggest requests? Here's where you can find them. If you click on the personal link for the personal lines page and choose the processing times link on the left side of the link, the processing times is embedded into the text of the right-hand side. When you click on it, another screen will open up with a chart. This is the chart, so it'll show your personal lines processing times by activity type, be able to identify the number of open requests, time service commitment is to the process that these requests are within, as well as what the average time to process is currently for us. Please note that the time services and average time to process are both in business days. If you look at an example here, for this example, we submitted a request to cancel a policy for an insured. It's been a couple of days, and we want to check and see how long it's been taking Citizens to process the cancellation. We can see from this chart that we have about 702 open requests right now. We're working in the order that we receive them. Our time service commitment's 5 business days, meaning we try to work all cancellations within 5 business days from the receipt. We can also see that the average on the right now, we're taking about 6 business days to process cancellation requests. So this guidance is updated every week for you on Wednesday. And I did it under 2 minutes.
Phenomenal job, Jim. Thank you. Great work. We do have some time for some additional questions. So please put them in the chat. I'll take one more minute. And I do want, if we don't get to your question, please send a note or an email to your assigned agency field manager, find your county. And if there's something you want to follow up with us on, hit the agency field manager that's assigned to your county, and we'll be happy to follow up with you with anything you have a bigger question on. We did get a couple questions on when is the clearinghouse going to come back up again. To be determined. We're very, very excited about the new version of the clearinghouse. We're currently working with Applied Systems, who was awarded the contract for the new clearinghouse. And we are in conversations and discovery with them right now. I think everyone will be pleased, though, with the new clearinghouse, what it does, the carrier reach, all kinds of things that, that we're very, very optimistic about. But that probably is not going to be till the first part of next year before we see any new clearinghouse on the desktop. So I would say Q1, late Q1 at the earliest. Another question on our carriers: how long do carriers have to stay on a policy that they assume through depopulation? Our plan of operations says the carrier needs to stay on the risk for at least 3 years. Okay, but they still can take rates in between that time. There's no guarantee that the rate will hold on those, but they are obligated to hold on to that customer for a 3-year period and not go through any kind of mass non-renewal activity on the tranches of business that they take. And with that, I do want to close on depopulation. Well, Eddie did a fantastic job on the operational piece. I do want to signal to everybody on the phone some confidence. We've had 11 carriers participate in depopulation this year at various times. That is a signal of a healthy marketplace. That is a signal that carriers have capacity and capital to deploy, and they want to use that capital and capacity to work with you to appropriately make offers to your customers that are with Citizens, we need your help and support. Okay. The questions and suggestions you guys have brought up about closeout reports and different support, absolutely. We can't do enough for our agents to help you with the conversations you need to have with these consumers. I often tell people that depopulation doesn't happen because we send the customer a letter. It happens because agents are having thousands of conversations every day, working with these consumers to make an informed choice and the best choice. So we thank you, everybody, for the help and support you're giving us. We do anticipate around, a few 100,000 policies this year having an offer, being assumed, and we're going to need to repeat that again over the next year or two. So I don't think depopulation is going away, but look at it as a signal of a healthy marketplace and private carriers wanting to take on more risk. They haven't been able to do that in the past 5 years. And we think depopulation is a signal that is a good sign for the state of Florida, given the changes that were made and the health of the environment as we move forward. So please look at it through that lens. But if we can be of help to you in depopulation, in any of the primary, non-primary things we talked about at any level, please don't suffer in silence. Work with one of our Citizens Agency field managers to help you and your staff do everything you can. So with that, I'm going to bring it in for a landing. Tom, if you're still out there, I'll let you close up. We do so appreciate the partnership with NAIFA. Please get involved. Your voice needs to be heard in Tallahassee and at other levels. And NAIFA does a great job of representing the agents. So we appreciate the time today.
Great. Thank you, Carl. We really appreciate it. Thanks to you and your team for a great presentation here. I can tell by the questions and the participation that everyone really enjoys these webinars from Citizens. We had nearly 150 of you on the call today, which is amazing. That tells me that you're anxious to get the information and anxious to learn more about what's going on at Citizens. So again, Carl and your team, thanks very much. I also want to thank Lee Gorodetsky and Eric Ponce, who are our NAIFA Florida members who serve on the various committees and roundtables at Citizens. They don't get paid for that. It's a volunteer effort on their part, so we really appreciate them representing not just NAIFA Florida, but all of the agents around the state on those committees. I did put some membership information in the chat feature earlier today. It's there. If you'd like to join NAIFA Florida, we'd love to have you. Just go to NAIFA.org, and there's a join button in the upper right-hand corner on that web page. It'll give you all the information you need to have in order to join NAIFA. We are the premier Agents Association for those in life, health, and property casualty, and we would love to have you as a member and join us. We have a lot of fun here, but we also do some very serious things when it comes to representing you before the Florida Legislature, the Department of Financial Services, and the governor's office as well. So we work on your behalf. We are recording this, of course, as I mentioned earlier in the chat feature. We are recording this. If you sent me a text message, if you sent me a chat message with your email address, we'll get the YouTube link out to you. Again, give me a day or two. That YouTube conversion gets a little weird sometimes. Sometimes it takes a day or so to make it happen, but we will send it to you. And I'm going to leave it open here just for another minute or two. If you have not put your email address in the system, in the chat feature, just send me the email address. That's all I need to have. But we'll send that to you, like I said, in a day or two. We'll be glad to get that out. So we'll leave it up for just another minute or two here while you do that. In the meantime, thanks everyone out there. Thanks for what you do for the citizens in the state of Florida regarding their very, very important property insurance to them. So have a good work day out there. Have a good weekend coming up. And thanks for all you do.